Next up on our board is Scoot Henderson, which he's fascinating, Grant, in the sense that if you just look at the numbers compared to like the counting stats per last year, there's not a ton of difference here. If you watch Scoot, and like, yeah, you could split up the season where he goes on that heater and it looks great. But I think the best way, when you watch him, everything just feels better.
Mhm.
And they were playing, oh man, what was the game? It was the game that they lost to the Lakers. And they come out of it. It's the first game out of the All-Star break. Pretty much everybody looks awful with the exception. Like Donovan Clingan came to play that game. But Scoot started like 0 of 6 or 0 of 7 or something. And I'm watching him the entire time like, wow, this guy's going to be really good. And I think that's the mark of just like, oh, this is how much better it looks, is he is missing shots, but they were shots he should have taken. He wasn't forcing it. His control and poise when he's on the ball is just way better. And then, yes, the counting stats, you could break it up into a season and you could find that, okay, like there's sort of the material changes. But you look at just his scoring. He was in the 8th percentile of self-created scoring efficiency last year. He's in the 65th now. That's a pretty big jump. His rim finishing, still touch and go. I think a lot of it kind of has to do with just takeoff points and angles, but his rim percentage is still 10 points higher than it was last year. He's more dangerous, like trying to get to that floater. And you look at, this is a big one, like just on jumpers, his effective field goal percentage as a rookie, 43.1. That's up to 49.8 this year. And you can even just look at, okay, the 3-point percentage is higher. You trust him to knock down a catch and shoot 3 now. I think his command over the game has gotten way better on the ball. I think he's not like, I think you could, if you want to hem and haw, is the quality of the passes where it needs to be if you want a floor general. I think that he's eventually going to get there. But when you kind of look at what he's doing in the lane, the patience he has when he's like going up against traffic, just the handle, the decision-making, everything feels, even though I think his turnover percentage might be up, everything just feels, the fundamentals look, they feel, and they are better. And so as someone that you need to trust to be able to hit jumpers, whether he's on or off the ball, or just get into the lane and make things happen, and maybe you're not necessarily trusting it at the most deliberate pace where it's like, okay, let's slow things down in the half court and send him a ball screen. Like there could still be some iffiness there. He's gotten better there too. Like, especially as a playmaker to me. And so this is, I mean, one, he is working off an incredibly low baseline from last year. And I think that helps his stock. But I think if you objectively just look at this season, he has had one of the more encouraging just sophomore campaigns in a vacuum, not even looking at, oh, Scoot, look at what he was last year compared to this year.
Yeah, I think like for the exact reason you said, his stock is up just because it was pretty bottomed out as far as, you know, a player with his kind of like draft pedigree and profile could get. Do you think, like, let's say he had played at exactly this level in his rookie season, do you think that would have registered as a disappointment still, like relative to where he was drafted and what we thought about him? Like if you could time travel back and he did this as a rookie, so 12, 5 and 3, like 55 true shooting, like that's still not going to, you know, blow you away. How are you feeling about this if it were his rookie season relative to expectations?
You know, I hope I would be nuanced enough to feel really good about it, because when you look at what his role has been for the most part with the Portland Trail Blazers, but I think people still would have looked at it as a disappointment just because of where he was drafted. We said some pretty inflammatory things about
for sure
he was drafted.
I think though, I was going to say, I think like the difference, the numbers probably wouldn't have cut it. I think whether that's fair or not, whatever. But I do think, as you pointed out, just you've seen validation of like, oh, that was some real quick burst, or like, man, he looks strong, or like, oh, that was so the suddenness was there, and like the shots that should be taken are being you would have last year if he had done this last year, you would have been able to say like, I still kind of I see it, like I get it, I understand why everybody was so high on him. Whereas in his actual rookie season, like, those were really few and far between. Forget the numbers, just like the instances where you could understand the vision of what a lot of people were saying he could be.
And he kind of showed hints of this like towards the end of last year. But like when you're just looking at some of the things of, okay, like 39.3% on a pretty good volume of catch and shoot threes, that's a big deal. The thing that I think I've struggled with the most, I believe in him as a foundational passer. And I think when you kind of mentioned, like, you saw the blow by speeds, but now I've been most impressed, like, okay, like he might have that and maybe he could use it even more. But there's also just like the word I used was like words, patience and poise. I've seen more of that. Like the game feels like it's slowed down for him. And so he doesn't feel the need to operate at a constant, like Amen Thompson operates at 11 out of 10 because that's just what he should do.
Right.
Like Scoot doesn't need to do that now. And like his game wasn't necessarily wired. If I had to point to an area of concern, I don't know. I'm intending to default to the Blazers just aren't built for him to be better. The finishing around the basket is really, really bad still.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of it, like I said, takeoff points and angles, but I like Portland's spacing is nowhere near pristine. I mean, his rim shot quality, and again, I don't know how much to assign to him, where he's in the 4th percentile of rim shot quality versus the 3rd percentile last year. But like when you're looking at the personnel around him, the Blazers have how many players on the Blazers, let's frame it this way, away from the ball are considered an above average threat?
Yeah. I mean, Simons, like
that's it.
Yeah. It's hard. You'd be hard pressed.
It's not Sharp. It's not Avdia. It's not Grant anymore. It's not Toumani Camara, even when he's hitting his threes. And so I really do think that makes his job more difficult. I think, look, some of the lineups they've played him in, I think you could argue like that they've exacerbated that problem. So I'm willing to give it more time. But when you're kind of looking at how he might react to contact, or he shies away from it, where that's like where the takeoff stuff is weird, where it's like he's trying to avoid the contact, it does give me pause. But for right now, I think I still chalk it up to like the Blazers offense a lot of the time in the half court. Like that's just not really built for anyone who's not a caps lock megastar to create high percentage opportunities at the basket.
Yeah.
I'm going stock up here. And I mean,
if
you're going stock down, not you specifically, if anyone's going stock down on Scoot, I mean this without a hint of irony. I would love to see the justification behind that. Who you got next, Grant?
Got another Blazer, another of yours and my Blazers. Toumani Camara. So first of all, like have you seen his shot chart? Just like it's one of the funniest shot charts. He should have come into the league and immediately been like time traveled back to the 2018 Rockets, where it's like you only shoot layups and you only shoot threes and you guard 5 positions. Like that's just what this guy is.
Actually, I don't know if you saw. Well, I haven't told you. Multiple sources tell me that Toumani Camara's shot chart acts as Cialis for Daryl Morey at this very moment. So
that's a much more succinct way to put the point I was trying to make. Thank you. I think he's just now one of the premier 3-and-D guys in the league. We were like racking our brains over like, who are the 3-and-D guys a couple pods ago? And it's like, yeah, it's him. It's heavier on it's lighter on the 3 than the D part, but like he's a fine 3-point shooter that I think maybe is another year or so away from this of being like really seriously guarded. Isn't doing anything else with the ball. So he really is a true, like kind of one thing offensive type of player. But the one thing he does is make threes at a decent enough clip to where he can be out there. He's, you need real creators. Portland has those, so that's fine. Defensively though, just like he guards everything, and that has earned him the most minutes and most starts of any sophomore. So like it's not like Portland doesn't have guys. Like they can play, they're sneaky deep. So he's earning all that with like elite role player type stuff. His matchup time is like illustrative of just like, we'll throw him on anybody. So in order, he has spent the most time guarding Devin Booker 1, and in descending order, SGA, James Harden, Anthony Edwards, Dame, Fred VanVleet, Jokic. Sure. Well, why not? Luka, Halliburton, Kevin Durant. Just like, who you got? Like whoever's a threatening scorer, that's who he's going to guard, and he's going to do very well. And I think like he's the way I would sum it up is he is an extremely limited but extremely useful like NBA starter, I think. And that's, I mean, he hinted at being this as a rookie, but like there aren't a whole lot of guys we're going to talk about. Maybe as I'm looking down the list, I don't think anybody else will say like that guy is a plus starter right now that could be on the floor in a conference finals, like in a 5th man role. Like that's a big deal. So, I mean, I feel like I'm telegraphing where my stock report's going to be, but
yeah, I mean, I'm horny for Camara as well. And I would probably say I might even be a little bit higher on him offensively than you, because this comes back to, again, what the Blazers are doing. But like some of the stuff he's been able to do, I don't think there's not going to be a ton of directionality to them, but like he can have those open space drives, and he's done a better job of passing out of some of them this year, it feels like. But like, it's not going to be, I'm trying to think of his offensive arsenal is like closer to Dorian Finney-Smith than like OG Anunoby, like where you're not going to see like OG Anunoby at least try and break guys down off the dribble and some spins. It doesn't always end well. So you could argue that Camara playing within himself, and the fact that just he's okay, like you will see him be in different spots on offense, but the fact that he's okay, like floating out to the corner, lifting up from the corner, like that's a big deal. Like some players don't, especially this young, they don't want to do that, especially when they're trying to get paid because he's on that. So they have him dirt cheap next year. And then they have the team option the following year. We'll see if they decline it and like, play the restricted free agency game. But he's so good. Like this is going to be, I don't think he's going to be a star. Like that would kind of surprise me. But like when you mention an OG Anunoby type, could you see a scenario where he has that type of just value and reputation around the league? Or do you think that OG was viewed as someone who had significantly more ball skills and that was kind of part of his mystique?
Yeah, it's weird because like no one would say OG was like I always feel like his offensive game was like good enough to where you're talking about like he could attack, he could physically overpower guys, and he could get you. I think he probably shot a slightly higher volume of threes and definitely has had some much more efficient 3-point shooting seasons. Kamara's at just under 37% this year, so like that's plenty good enough for what he brings defensively. I think OG, if he could get to an Anunoby level, like that's probably about the ceiling. I think the other thing to just, throw a little cold water on is like, he's going to be 25 before in May, I think. So this is like, he is a player whose athleticism matters. And so like he, I think, he's in his prime today. Like it's not saying he can't stay here for like 3, 4, 5 more years, but like, I'm not sure I see a ton of upside. And if it did come, I think it would be, as you alluded to, like just a little more versatility offensively, like being a little more threatening, attacking with the ball. But like, just again, the very limited things that he's asked to do, he's great at. So I just, he fits. And also find the team he doesn't fit on. Like the team doesn't exist.
And by the way, if he's adding versatility, it's not coming on the defensive end. Like it has to. What else is he supposed to do defensively? And by the way, there's some value in that. Where let's say his athleticism wanes, like the fact that he spent so much time on like these bigger dudes, where it's we'll just go defend Jokic and like a bunch of fours if he's not able to keep up with the smaller point of attack guys moving forward. So stock up for me. What about you?
Big time, yeah. Stock up.